Hello guys, thank you for tuning into my channel. I'm Azrael, and in this video I'm going to be talking about some popular questions asked to me about the subject of necromancy or spirit contact. This will probably be a new playlist, and it's probably going to be titled Ask a Necromancer. Okay, so one of the questions I get asked, both online and in my personal life: Hey Azrael, why necromancy? Well, my reply is, why not? Right. First of all, most people who don't practice magic or study the occult have a basic, lucid understanding about necromancy, but they still have a lot of misunderstandings or some stigmatism to it or taboo. Same thing goes for people who practice the occult. They may be familiar with spirit work, like calling in the ancestors, lighting a candle to honor mom or dad, ask them for favor in a form of theurgic prayer. Okay. Um, so they're like, well, that's all we need. So why all this? Well, not to sound rude, but the simple answer is because somebody else has a different spirituality and a different understanding than you. So not to be rude, but to express the point. Okay. First of all, I'm not going to recommend most books on spirit contact because most of the time when you look online or buy a book, uh, my opinion is most of these self-appointed necromancers are nothing more than a bunch of edge lords. Okay, let me explain. Some of the old traditions of necromancy are, in fact, even back then, taboo. You don't be digging up graves and confiscating dead bodies or dead body or parts of dead bodies that don't belong to you and was not legally given to you or rightfully given to you. This is something that was done in the past. Just was. Uh, and these books and videos, instead of teaching people this as history, they still teach it as a ritual that could be followed, which, well, it could be, but they do not give a, they say, don't do this, you can get arrested, it's illegal in most parts of the world, here's the ritual, and then they move on as if that is supposed to tell the reader or the watcher of the video what to do if they can't do that. Or they give it off as this is what you do it at your own risk. They don't give an alternative because, in my opinion, they're trying to keep and promote this dark, forbidden aspect of necromancy. One author in a book talks about absorbing death energy, and instead of just meditating in a cemetery, no, this guy says you cut your left and your right foot and you stand on a grave to absorb the energy and be connected to earth when you could just, oh, I don't know, avoid infection and becoming part of the cemetery by just taking off your shoes and standing and feeling it through your feet and meditating. Um, Same thing goes for, uh, which is less risky, but the same thing goes for what's called grave sleeping or grave lying, where you lie on top of a grave and you feel like you're decomposing, you meditate, and you feel like you're dead. Uh, they'll go so far as to dig your own grave hole and then sleep in the graveyard. Okay, you can sleep in the graveyard, camp out. You know, some of them say, well, make sure you don't do this by yourself, which is a smart thing, but this is still unnecessary. Um, so all this does is actually continue instead of being taught as history and things that have been done, or you still could do it without giving an alternative and teaching it just as history. This promotes this dark, forbidden viewpoint, which is a turnoff for even the most curious of people because it requires you to do stupid things. Um, and it's not, you don't have to do it. There's other forms, okay? There's other ways to get in touch with death other than sleeping in a graveyard. Go there in go there at twilight hours and you can meditate. You don't have to go to sleep. You don't have to spend the night there. There's surrounding yourselves with images and depictions of death. You know, whatever puts you in that line. You don't have to take the Nestle plunge into chaos to do this kind of work. All right. Second of all, necromancy literally means to divine with the dead. Now, whenever you look online, you usually find necromancy is nothing. Necromancers mostly as characters in D&D or other video games or role-playing games. There's really almost hardly any practical knowledge being passed around except for this bloody bloodletting rituals, which is in the end, yeah. I use a little needle to prick my finger. I'm a diabetic. I take my bloodletting tool that I use to test my blood, and I'll add a drop of blood. Maybe add a drop of blood into my necromantic ink. I might make a video on that. But you don't need to like cut your hands open and stupid crap like that. Okay, so moving on. Necromancy is divining with the dead. One of the misunderstandings is that when most people think about why would you contact the dead in the first place unless you're trying to get information? Uh, where did Uncle Tom leave his will? What's the outcome of certain events? Let's ask a dead person who sees things from a different perspective, from a different reality. Uh, but that's really a small part of necromantic rites. When you hear necromancy, understand it's divining with the dead, but anything involving the dead is necromantic. All right, so you witches out there who summon your ancestors to be a part of your circle, you're still practicing a form of necromantic rites. You might not be asking them a question about the future, but you're still practicing something involving the dead, necro. Okay, so where does this word necromantic rite or necromancy appear? Which, by the way, I should iterate. That's why necromancy, even though it's a small part of a bigger whole, it has become the name for the whole damn thing. Okay, instead of it just being called an apple slice, everything that involves ingredients, it's making an apple pie. It's probably a bad example, but witchcraft is witchcraft, for example. Magic is magic. It's not necessary. It's just energy. But according to people who do not practice magic, they look at you as being evil anyway because you don't worship their god. So they just lump everything together. It's a similar concept. I should have probably meditated on how to explain it, but I'm sure you guys get my point. Necromancy has become the broader term for anything practicing with the dead, if you're using divination or not, basically. But if you're not divining, you're actually practicing necromantic rites. So the word necromancy stems from necromantic, which stems from the Latin word necromantia. Okay, much older still, necromantia comes from the ancient Greek, which is necromanteia. And then even older still, there is necromanteia comes from the word nakia. All right, now that word basically appears in the Odyssey around the 8th century BC. We have our protagonists having to contact the underworld. They get advice on how to complete his missions. So, excuse me, I have gas. The reason why necromancy is that it actually stems from a practice that you might be surprised. Necromancy is a form of shamanism. A lot of people, I can hear you guys now. What? Well, let's hear this out. In the ancient world, before there was complex titles of priest, high priest, bishop, blah 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 blah, you had a shaman. Now, understand, the shaman was not the style of magic they used or spirituality. It was not the form of spirituality they used. It was an office, like a chief. You had the chief who was the chief of the tribe, and you had a shaman who was the spiritual leader of that tribe. It was not the name of their art they used, but it was the office. It's an office. So if you want to become a shamanism, everybody in the tribe might have been practicing what you would call shamanistic practices, but you had the shaman who was a specialist in all of it, so was considered more. It's like instead of going to Google to learn your possible sickness, you'd go to an actual doctor to learn what's going on. Okay, so the shaman was an office that was an expert in other areas that was not necessarily known or was known by the people that they would seek his help. Okay, um, moving further, part of his job was communicating with the gods, the nature spirits, and not surprisingly, the dead. Because when somebody died, which was very common, well, everybody dies, but during this age, the lifespan of an average individual was not very long. I mean, because of modern science, the average lifespan of a person is into the 70s and 80s. You know, a couple of decades ago, it was actually in the 60s. You follow me? Like in the days of uh, 2,000 years ago, in the days of Jesus, the average lifespan was 30 years old. That didn't mean that people didn't live past 30 on a regular basis. It was just as a society and how many people were alive at the time, they could create the average death rate, which most people would. I mean, you had children dying at 5 or 6 years old. You had people dying at 30 or 25. Most people did not live. If you was older and you lived past, say, 30, 40, you was becoming an old wise man and class of all your own. You know, the gods must have favored you, kind of stuff. You have wisdom that we need to learn about. That's how all that came about. Okay, but yes, in a society where people were dying constantly from diseases they didn't know about, the shaman, it was his business or her business to contact the other side, including the ancestors, to find out what's going on. Necromancy. So it was a part of a shamanistic office and part of the shamanistic practices. Okay. What later happened is that this little subject broke off a little bit, like many other parts of shamanism, and became their own school and their own profession. Just like you have a doctor that sees you on a regular basis, if you have something like, say, a pancreas problem, he's not going to just cover that. He's going to send you to a specialist that deals specifically on pancreas. Okay, so as witchcraft evolved and became more complex, different schools of thought arose and different specialities appeared within these schools. This is one of them. Necromantic practices is a shamanistic practice that became more complex and how is its own art. And because of the taboo involved, because yes, shamans, their culture, it was okay to do certain things. Hell, even today we have small groups of people in tribes that dig up their dead and literally mummify them and have them on display for a long period of time. Things that would be gasped at by Western society and looked down upon is currently practiced. So they're practicing necromancy more often in the older uh, tribes that are not yet modernized, and that's the problem. The more you become more civilized, when you look at things that are morbid or have been taught to be a taboo, it becomes less and less practiced. Then you have these people who thrive on the fact that people look at them as dark magicians, evil and powerful. And these are the ones that continue to promote this. Uh, yeah, you need a human bone. No, you don't. Can you? Yes. You can legally possess them. Yes. Um, Several places online will sell human bones legally because they were donated to them by people who donated their bodies to science and whatever they used. Now, like the body farms, they're used up. They take the bones. They might sell them to colleges or private collectors for educational purposes. You have people who die in certain countries, like certain parts of South America. You don't Once you're buried, you're not buried forever. You're actually there until no one pays the yearly rent, and then they dig you up and they put you in a mass grave. Sometimes these people sell them. Okay, the only place where you can't, I think, own bones is in Louisiana because some idiot witch ruined it for everybody else by waiting for floods to come and actually steal bones from people who were buried and selling them to other witches as if it was obtained legally. So Louisiana just went. So that's one place where I know you can't buy them. But here in the United States, you can usually go online and literally buy anything from human femurs, skulls, and so forth. I know there's a shop in North Carolina. In North Carolina that sells it, and there's a shop. Matter of fact, it had a TV show. It's called Oddities. It's based in New York. It's a nice place to go. They sell Uh, human skulls for around $300 something. But anyways, I digress. You can do it legally and you can have it, but it's not needed. Just using images of a skull is good based on sympathetic properties is good enough. I mean, I do incorporate this deer, for example. It's a real skull. Um, uh, little Mickey Mouse, for example, over here. He's a real articulated rat. I have a mummified bat and stuff. I use animal parts, not because I killed them for magic uses. They died naturally or for food, and I incorporated them. But again, a lot of things that you find online are being edgy because edgy sells, and it makes them look a certain way. Uh, yeah, so don't be scared of necromancy. Understand that whatever can be conceived in one ritual can be changed and conceived to be more kosher in another or more socially acceptable. But that's it. It's why necromancy? Because some people are not satisfied with contacting their ancestors through prayer and candles. Sometimes they might want a little bit more. They might want to see them. They might want to fear them. They might want to actually hear their voice, not just feel their presence. Because with me, feeling a presence can be the feeling the presence of a spirit or being just like most people, and I'm going to say most, in every religion, because not everybody in general will be right about how they feel. I know God exists because I feel it. Well, there's a lot of things that you could feel that isn't true. That doesn't make it true because it feels true. So some people just don't want, they need more than just, oh, I could feel my grandmother. No, they might want to feel their grandmother, but hear her voice, smell her cookies that she would make. Something more definitive than just, I know because I asked and I have an emotional, fuzzy feelings that tell me that it's happening. So why necromancy? Why not? Some people might need a little bit more or want a little bit more. I'm a very visual person. I'm a skeptic. The only reason why I believe in this stuff is because it's happened to me. Okay, end of story. I would probably be a complete 100% skeptic on everything if I have not seen it or felt it. That is why I believe. Could I be completely hallucinating? Could I be completely mad as fuck and just like insane and need medication? Yeah, but in the end, it's not just that I've seen. Other people have seen what I have seen and have confirmed what I've seen before I confirmed that I saw it first. To me, you just can't fucking fool. You can't fool that. You can't fool if you see something and before you open your mouth, somebody else goes, "Holy hell, did you see so and so?" And it's what you saw, and you haven't confirmed them, and so you know for a fact they're not playing on your. Hey, did you see that? Yeah, I did. It's kind of to me that's definitive. That's definite proof. But yeah, I've seen it. I want to have a direct two-way with it as much as possible. Does it guarantee that I'll have a two-way with it? No, but it has happened more and more as I have done it. Certain spirits I would have really loved to speak with. Maybe they've moved on, reincarnated, or do whatever, but they're not answering for whatever reason. I'm fine with that because I know that there's, or I feel from what I've seen, there is life after death. So there you go. Minor necromancy because I want more. Take care.